guys, Craig here, Fergie Time. Today I got a fun episode for you. It's David McBee. He wrote the book Tales from the Trail, and it's a collection of a bunch of short stories, and he wrote all of them, and to be honest, I couldn't put it down. I loved it. I read it on the airplane as I flew from Colorado to Vegas, and by the time I landed, I was done. I was kind of bummed. I was like, oh man, is that it? So I'm excited for you guys. Check it out. Like, subscribe, all that great stuff. Hey guys, Craig here, Fergie Time. This is episode, I think it's 9 episodes, and chatting with cool people doing cool things with off-road stuff, and I'm stoked. I'm so stoked to have David with us today. I was just telling him before we started talking, I read this book, Tales from the Trails. It's a collection of off-road short stories. I went to Vegas last week, and I read it in the airport, and then as I got on the plane, and by the time I got in Vegas, I was done. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, it's awesome, man. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So David, you do a bunch of I see your shirt there, DJ's Off-Road Adventure, children's book stories, and I'm just kind of curious, like how you went from that to Tales of the Trail.
Well, the truth is, I love doing the DJ's books. They're based on true life Jeep adventures that I had with my friends and things like that. But the reality is that they're kind of expensive because I self-publish and I have to hire an illustrator to do every single page, and it kind of gets cost prohibitive. And in the meantime, I was thinking, man, I really want to do a fourth DJ book, but I just don't have the money for it. I had picked up a copy of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I was reading that again. I've read it 100 times, but I thought, man, wouldn't it be fun if there was a Chicken Soup for the Soul that was just for off-road people? And then I thought, hey, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could get my friends to send in their stories and share their favorite trail adventures, and I could put together a chicken soup kind of book for Jeep people.
I know it's a collection of short stories, and I know at the beginning of the book you kind of talk about how you went through the process of finding just random times to meet all these people, and I know it's ghost written. What does that mean?
Well, originally I thought, okay, I'm going to have all my friends write their story, submit them to me. I'll edit them for grammar and things like that and create this collection. But the reality is I couldn't get anybody to do that. I did have one guy do it, but his story was really short. I thought, okay, well, this is not going to work. But I knew people had great stories, and I'm a podcast host as well. So I thought, what if I interviewed them in an environment just similar to what you and I are in right now? And then I did that, and I recorded the interview, and I got a full transcript of the conversation. And then I said, well, I could just rewrite this as though I am them. And so I captured their voice. I used their own phrases. It was their story, but I got to write it as them. That's kind of how I didn't even know I was a ghostwriter until I did that for the first time. And then, I gave the story back to my friend Sarah, and she actually cried. She's like, this is like a beautiful gift. I love having my story written so eloquently and for me to share it with other people. So I've gathered about 46 stories, including my own.
It's kind of cool because as I read through 46 stories, you would think it'd be really disjointed and all over the place, but it really wasn't. It felt like chapters in the same book. You know what I mean? Like it was the same kind of voice, and it was really good. I liked it a lot.
Thank you. It kind of turned out to be a blessing, in my opinion. The Chicken Soup for the Soul stories are very different. They vary in length. They vary in style. Since I was the ghostwriter, I was able to keep some consistency among them. Most of the stories are around 1,200 words, and they all kind of have a similar style while still trying to capture the storyteller's voice. At least that was my goal.
What's the biggest difference between writing a kid's book and then going to this?
I used the thesaurus a lot more. I'll tell you a funny story. When I wrote all 64,000 words of this entire book, and then I did a search for how many times did I use a certain word. I was like, oh man, I used that word way too many times, right? Like the word challenge or obstacle, like it came up in the book 100 plus times. I was like, that's going to get real old real fast if people keep reading that. So I had to kind of go in and use a thesaurus and be creative. So, I mean, it's all about grammar. It's about sentence structure. It's story structure. it's finding the climax of the story, all the things that we learn in story writing, back in the day.
What would be the most rewarding part of this book?
I'll tell you, while I was writing the book, my favorite thing to do was to finish a story, give it back to the storyteller, and hear their feedback on it. Most of the time it was, I loved this, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And that just warmed my heart. It made me feel amazing. And then it was like, but you got this wrong, and this wrong, which is fine. A lot of them, there was a lot of rewriting, a lot of going back and forth with the actual storytellers until they were 100% satisfied that it felt like their story. That was really important to me. But, I got 40 something new friends out of the deal. I feel like I could go to any corner of the United States and have somebody to go off-road with now, because I just made so many great relationships in the process. So that was very rewarding.
Did a favorite story come out?
My favorite story, and I'm biased, but is the one that
from your wife or your
from
kid
my wife.
Or someone
It was my
else?
wife's.
Okay.
It was my wife's. And that what that one was about. We've been together for 25 years, and she asked me to marry her again at the top of the world, and it was totally surprise to me. So, just hearing, like when I interviewed her for it, hearing about how she planned the event and things I wouldn't have known, that was just a really rewarding experience. And people say that.
Did you ghostwrite her story as well?
I ghost wrote every single story in the book, including my wife's and my daughter's.
Reading the book, and it's like, man, you come right out the gate hard with the first story with the lady talking about rollovers and having to get airlifted, and there's some really intense story.
Yeah, in fact, I was really surprised by how vulnerable people were with me. Jamie's story about how she went on an alcoholic party spree and then, woke up next to a man she had just started dating, and she wasn't even sure how she got there. And I'm like, I can't believe you're sharing this with me. I'm a complete stranger to you, but thank you, because this is exactly what I wanted the book to be about overcoming in the human spirit. And that her Jeep plays like a character in that story, but it's so much more than, oh, we went off-roading and I almost flipped my Jeep, or I flipped my Jeep, whatever. There's a lot more to it.
There's two that come to mind. So the one was the Search for the Snow Kings one with Brent.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, Brent's story. He's telling me the story. And by the way, Brent doesn't have his own voice, so he speaks through one of those. But he sounds a little like a robot. He would tell you that, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, will this Zoom call even transcribe this? And it missed a lot. So that was one of the harder ones. But he said, yeah, I was dead. I was literally dead for like 20 minutes or something like that. And somebody just found him and brought him back to life. And it's just amazing stories about overcoming. And then the off-road element plays like I said, it's like a character in the book. Is the vehicles are a part of their story, but it's not the story.
All Jeepers, we seem to be on YouTube a lot, watching, whenever I go to a trail, before a trail, I'll look at a YouTube video and I'll watch it, make sure, okay, is this something I can do? And I won't say I hate height, but Black Bear Pass is not really high on my list to do. And I happened to watch that Bleepin' Jeep video maybe a year ago or something when he was going down that. Cool, but I felt like it was so much more intense from your book than actually seeing it.
That's interesting. So, when I spoke to him, he didn't even seem that fazed by the experience. But I had also seen that one, and I watched it before doing Black Bear. I have a problem with shelf roads, and if you've read my book, you definitely understand. I have honest to God panic attacks, right? So when I did Black Bear, I did it as a passenger, and I got out at the hard parts. I did the wife walk, that's no offense to wives that Jeep, but I was like, I'm walking. I am what I am. This is fine. That was years ago. I think I'm ready to do it now. I'm a little more seasoned, but coming from Kansas, we don't have a lot of shelf roads out here to deal with. So,
were there any stories that just were really funny that just made you laugh as you were writing it?
Well, I loved Corey Cook's story. It's called From Princess to K-Dog, and it's about the first time he went wheeling, and he went with a group called Girls Play Off-Road.
Oh, that one, yeah.
And his teenage daughters, they were so mean to him. They're like, Mom, did you know Dad's going off-roading with his girlfriends? They were just relentless, and they picked on him so bad. But oh my God, he's such a good sport, and his daughters seem like so much fun. So it makes me laugh every time I read it.
Out in Colorado, and I actually, Adrian and Eva,
yeah,
and they told, this was before I read it, so they told us about the book and all that, and how, because I asked them, because they were like, oh, we're from the East Coast. We're from Pennsylvania, and I'm from Pennsylvania. So it's like, oh, really? You went wheeling out there? And she's kind of told me a little bit about their story, and it's like, oh, well, it's in this book. So if you happen to look at it, you can read our story. And sure enough, it was in there.
I loved their story too. It was so much fun. And I did have to change his language a little bit to make it PG-13, but I use a lot of flippin' and frickin' and freaking and flippin'.
And I like Julie's story when I was just amazed where she's at now. Oh my gosh, I thought she's been doing it her whole life, and reading that I was like, oh wow, I can get there. Okay.
Yeah, her story is all about how you can be in your 50s or 60s and pick up a new hobby and be passionate about it and go out there and just like kill it. She is killing it.
Were there any stories while you were doing it you're like, oh, this reminds me of one of DJ's adventures? Or
honestly, if I'm totally honest, I could probably turn over half of those stories into a DJ story. Jeep Daisy, April Russell's story about her doing the Artemis rally with her daughter. I could totally see a little white Jeep and a little pink Jeep like going out in the adventure together. And I mean, there's so many would easily translate into a DJ book, because DJ books are based on, real life stories.
So you interview them,
you
get their story, then you write it down, you send it to them, and they kind of like fact check what
they
you
go
wrote.
Redlining through the parts that don't make sense or that I got wrong, because sometimes they leave something out, and I kind of got to take a guess at filling in the gaps. And they're like, "You're way off. Where'd you come up with that?" And I'm like, "The story needed something here to bridge from part A to part C, where you told and I came up with part B. If I'm wrong, just tell me what part B should look like." And so that's what the ghostwriting process was like.
Out of all the books, if you could choose one of them for you to experience yourself, not the ones that you actually did or your wife or your daughter, but if there's one of them that you could experience, which one would it be?
The one that really made me just want to get in my Jeep and drive was Bryant Sanchez's story called Unchained, The Trail to Self-Discovery. If you remember, Bryant had a plan to go all the way from like Colorado to Alaska in his Jeep. But then when he got to the border, he didn't have the proper paperwork or something like that. And so he kind of pivoted and he just explored the Pacific Northwest, and he was up there for like 90 days, just him and his Jeep all alone. And just the sense of freedom that comes through on that story. I just think it would be hard to read that story and not want to buy a Jeep and go out into the woods. His story could be a Jeep commercial. It's so inspiring.
Well, that one, and then also the one where the guy, I don't remember which one it was. I think he was an engineer or something. He had a high-paying job, but he just liked working on Jeeps more and kind of deviated his career.
Are you talking about the pharmacist that became a fabricator?
Yes.
Yeah, he went to school for pharmacy. Like he followed the path he was supposed to follow, but he'd always been into Jeeps and he loved fabricating. So now he owns his own fabrication business. I think he's still, I don't remember if he's still a pharmacist part-time or if he's close to quitting, but he's trying to get his business to the point where he can do it full-time.
So how long have you been off-roading?
I've been driving Jeeps since I was 15 years old. And I only had Jeeps. I had a CJ7, then a YJ, then another YJ, then a TJ. Then I had my kids and I bought a Durango. Yeah, and the minivan and all that garbage.
We had a minivan and a Durango. I feel you.
But then in 2018, when I bought my JL Rubicon, that's when I got serious. Like all those other times, I would find a field and go play in the mud and things like that. I didn't even realize the extent of the off-road options out there until I discovered them on Instagram. I mean, Instagram, I remember seeing Top of the World for the first time and going, oh my God, I want to go there. That's like the spot where Luke and Obi-Wan look down on Mos Eisley's. Like that's like from a fiction. Is that real? Can I take my Jeep there? And so in 2018, I built up my Jeep like for real. And that's when I met Jeff Hooper, who plays Hooper in all my books, but he owns his own a business called Hooper's Overland Adventures. And he showed me the ropes. And he took me to Colorado. He took me to Moab, wheeling in 10 different states now. Like I just go anywhere we're about to go on a road trip this week. We're going to go to Hot Springs Off-Road Park, and then we're going to drive down to Sedona and Surprise, Arizona, and do that. So
was there any books that you were like, oh, that's good advice, or it kind of helped you with your off-roading, or, you know, just advice that you took on for yourself?
But to someone who is new to wheeling, a lot of these stories are about the first time people went. And in fact, one of my fears was, are all these stories going to start sounding alike? And there are certainly some similarities there. I don't think that was the case. Do you think they seemed too similar to one another?
No, like I said, you know, reading through, I could tell they were all from the same book, but they were definitely different chapters. How do you balance between dramatic and fun? Obviously, there were some stories that were very dramatic, talk about life and death and rollovers. And then there were just some that were just fun. Oh, I'm going to put a serious one and then follow it up with a fun one, or like
the order I put them in was based on, and I even had a little chart that was like, this one's very dramatic, this one is emotional, this one's scary, this one's funny. And I would try to not put this kind of the same theme right next to each other. Some of the stories had elements of both. You know, they were funny and dramatic, or funny and scary, or whatever. And I think that just kind of came organically from the storytellers themselves, and because life is like that.
What's the best piece of feedback or comment you've received?
When my dad got the book and he read the foreword, he like literally went in the other room. He said, I'm going to go read this foreword. All right. And then when he came back, he was in tears. And that meant a lot to me, because as you know, the foreword is about him bringing home the Jeep for the first time and me falling in love with it. And the way that Jeep, influenced my relationship with my dad, and to see him cry over that was a pretty cool moment for me.
What are your plans now? Is there going to be Tales of the Trail 2 or other Jeep projects or other books?
You know, there could definitely be a volume 2 of Tales from the Trails. I'm not quite ready to sit down and write it yet. I think I really want to write that DJ book 4. I've got an idea for one called DJ Saves Christmas. You know, he finds this big 18-wheeler that just happens to be red and white, and, you know, carrying a bunch of Jeep parts, stuck on the side of the road, and DJ and his friends have to like come to the rescue. I won't tell the whole story, but that's kind of in my head. Paying the illustrator is the thing that's kind of holding me back. When I wrote book 3, Hot Springs Off-Road Park was nice enough to sponsor that book. They gave me a big chunk of the money to help me pay for the illustrator. And in return, the book actually takes place at Hot Springs Off-Road Park. That was like our exchange, right? And you can even see their sign on the building and everything. For book 4, I am actually looking for sponsors. I'm going to have a sponsor page. Anybody who wants to be a sponsor can have their logo in the book, and they get to create a character. And one of those characters is going to, help save Christmas with DJ. So I'm looking for some sponsors there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So besides buying the books, how can people support?
Well, there are actually there's 3 things people can do that are really super helpful. One, if you've read the book, any of my books, whether it's DJ or Tales from the Trails, a review on Amazon is really, really helpful. Reviews are the number one way the algorithms decide whether or not they're going to present the book to future readers or people searching. So that's number 1. 2, I really am so grateful anytime anybody shares something on social media. A picture of them holding the book, a picture of them, their little people, their little kids reading the DJ books. Especially like I've gotten some pictures of like a 3-year-old holding my book inside their mom's Jeep or in one of those little Power Wheels. I love that. I think the third thing people could do if they really want to help any of these is to like put me in touch with Jeep dealerships or off-road accessory stores that are willing to like carry the book. Hot Springs, Kansas Rocks, Southern Missouri Off-Road Ranch, they've all been carrying my books for several years now. They feel like it's a great addition to their shops, and I'd be super grateful to anyone who wants to carry my books in their stores. And I have a retailer discount available for anybody who wants to do that.
What do you hope readers take away from Tales of the Trail?
I think that on the surface, Tales from the Trails is a book about off-road adventures. Below the surface, it's a book about human resilience and people overcoming not just rocky obstacles, but life's obstacles. And I think it's a good read for anyone. That's inspiring. Whenever you're dealing with a struggle, to see other people have gone through a struggle and overcome it, that just it gives you hope that you too can overcome.
It's fun because as I look through it, I'm like, oh, I know Julie. Oh, I know April. Oh, I know Eva. It's cool seeing people that I do know, and then some people I don't know. Like I like the story of the singer
Jeremy Rowe.
Yeah, because I do a lot of stuff with Jedco.
Yeah.
And he does stuff with Jedco, and hearing his story and how he started making all these Jeep songs, and that was cool.
And I'll bet you didn't know any of the Bronco stuff, right?
No.
We live in these little silos, and I've discovered like they have some pretty cool tales as well. You didn't ask, but RJ Zanin's story about the helicopters. Man, I just thought that was like an episode of A-Team or something, like super exciting. Like he's like flying through the desert in his Bronco to get back to headquarters to let him know about this landing zone issue. He's trying to save lives. I was like,
oh, that one, yes.
I'm like, how did I get so lucky to find these people that have these stories? That's the big takeaway is how grateful I am to the people who shared for Tales from the Trails. And nobody got paid. All they got was a $20 gift card so they could buy a copy of the book. You know, they all did it out of the kindness of their hearts, their generosity, and, you know, I'm just so grateful for every single storyteller.
All right, fun time now. I'm going to hit you with some random questions. You ready?
Okay.
What TV show would you want to be in?
Star Trek. I'd love to fly around with Jean-Luc Picard on the Enterprise.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Sure.
How many languages can you say hello in?
2. Hola.
What is your favorite place that starts with the word new? New Zealand, New
Sure. I'd love to
Mexico.
go to New Zealand, and I spent a lot of time in New York, so I'll go with New York.
Are you more afraid of the doctor or a dentist?
Neither.
Good for you.
But, I'm a cancer survivor, so I spend a lot of time with doctors. That's actually why I was late for our appointment today.
Oh gosh.
But I'm killing it. So
good for you.
I'm not afraid of them at all. And I love my dentist. She's just the sweetest lady in the world. So bring it on. Doctors,
good
dentists.
For you.
They're keeping us alive and keeping us smiling.
If possible, would you rather live underwater or in space?
In space with Jean-Luc.
If your life had a theme song, what song would it be?
There's a song by the group Asia. They have a song called "This Is an Extraordinary Life," and that is definitely my theme song. This is an extraordinary life.
Well, thanks for hanging with me. I hope you have fun. And dude, again, I love the book. It was awesome. So, well, yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on your show, man. I appreciate you.
All right, guys. Well, that was fun. Hopefully you got something from that. Definitely go check out this book. It's so good. I'll throw a link in the description, and hopefully you can buy it elsewhere, but it's really good. If there's anybody else that you would like me to bring on the show, I'd really appreciate it. Just send me a note. I'm on Spotify as well, obviously, as YouTube. Fergie, thejku.com. Check it out. Check me out on Instagram, Fergie.thejku with dot after Fergie.the.jku. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Peace.